Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are delighted to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. So let's begin our journey with today's story. Applause echoed throughout the upscale restaurant as men and women in tailored suits raised their glasses in celebration beneath crystal chandeliers. This was the traditional dinner after the Westbrook family business's quarterly board meeting, seemingly harmonious but with undercurrents of tension. To the most successful quarter in our company's history, Fiona stood, raising her champagne glass, a victorious smile on her slightly tipsy face. As the heir to Westbrook Technology Investment Group, her every move affected everyone present. Special thanks to Desmond for bringing innovative investment strategies to the company. Sitting nearby, Desmond smiled smugly, dressed in a distinctive deep purple suit, his sapphire cufflinks glittering with an intensity that matched his ambition. As the company's newest partner, he had increased profits by 30% in just 6 months, at least on paper. Fiona's husband Elias sat quietly in the corner, seemingly indifferent to this business celebration. He wore a simple black suit, gently swirling his wine glass, his gaze thoughtful. As a successful independent consultant, Elias had chosen to maintain distance from his wife's family business, focusing on his own career. At least, this was everyone's impression of him. Elias, why don't you say something? Nathaniel, the brother of Fiona's late father Gareth and current board member, suddenly asked. What's your take on recent developments? The table suddenly fell silent, all eyes turning to Elias. Elias set down his glass and spoke calmly. I've noticed that the investment in the quantum project has increased by 40% over the original plan. From a risk management perspective, this seems somewhat aggressive. Fiona's smile froze on her face. This is precisely where we need to break from conventional thinking. You're always too cautious, which is why your consulting firm remains so small. The atmosphere immediately tensed. Elias and Fiona's marriage had always been admired by everyone, and this public dismissal was unexpected. Desmond cleared his throat, attempting to ease the tension. The data supports our decision. The quantum project has a projected return rate of 25%. Can you ensure these forecast data are accurate? Elias looked directly into Desmond's eyes, asking quietly, Are you questioning my professional capabilities? Desmond frowned. I'm simply raising reasonable doubts, Elias responded calmly, especially considering that the company behind Quantum is affiliated with the Meridian Group, which has a history of financial opacity. The table fell silent. Elias had just pointed out a core issue, which evidently touched a nerve with both Fiona and Desmond. Fiona's face changed from red to white, then to a deep, angry red. She stood up abruptly, almost shouting, Enough! You understand nothing. You hide in your little consulting firm all day without knowing anything about big business. Fiona, calm down. Harrison, a senior board member, tried to pacify her. But Fiona had already lost control. I'm sick of your superior attitude. Who do you think you are? If it weren't for me, you'd still be at that small law firm doing insignificant work. Elias maintained his composure, which seemed to further infuriate Fiona. Say something. Why are you always like this? Why do you always act like you know everything but refuse to share it? Other diners in the restaurant began to stare. Preston, the family lawyer, awkwardly lowered his head. Elias finally spoke. I believe tonight isn't a good time to discuss this. You believe? Fiona repeated sarcastically. When do you think would be a good time? After you discover the company has lost millions? Or after you realize your wife no longer loves you? These words exploded like a bomb at the table. Nathaniel and Harrison exchanged shocked glances, while Preston quickly looked at his phone, pretending not to hear. Elias's expression showed a crack for the first time, a flash of pain crossing his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. He slowly stood up. Fiona, we should talk at home. But Fiona was already completely controlled by anger and alcohol. She approached Elias, her voice trembling yet clear. You incompetent man. Slap. A resounding slap landed on Elias's face. The entire restaurant instantly went silent, with only the sound of utensils clinking in the distant kitchen. Elias didn't retaliate or dodge. He simply gently touched his burning cheek, then took out his phone from his pocket. Now you won't even speak? Fiona mocked. Hiding in your silence again? Elias didn't respond, just looked down at his phone, quickly typed something, and pressed send. Did you just send a text? Fiona asked incredulously. At a time like this, to whom? Your insignificant clients. You'll know in 10 minutes, Elias said softly, which was the last thing he said that evening. Elias and Fiona's meeting had been full of drama. 5 years ago, Fiona, as a rising star in the tech investment world, attended a charity gala. She was unimpressed by most men who approached her. They were either after her wealth and status, or simply attracted by her appearance. However, Elias was different. At the time, he was a partner at a boutique law firm, specializing in corporate restructuring and mergers. He didn't deliberately approach Fiona, but stood in a corner talking with an older gentleman, who happened to be Fiona's father Gareth, founder of Westbrook Technology Investment Group. I disagree that immediate layoffs after a merger is the best strategy. Fiona overheard Elias telling her father. It might look good financially in the short term, but in the long run, you lose core talent and corporate culture. Gareth seemed interested in the young man's insights. Then what do you suggest? Retain key teams. Give them a genuine sense of belonging and equity incentives. Decide on the organizational structure after understanding the business essence. Quick, decisive cuts often sever the lifeblood of innovation. Fiona, attracted by this conversation, joined in. Elias didn't change his manner of speaking or overly flatter her when she joined, which Fiona found refreshing. Their discussion moved from business to art, philosophy, and even their favorite childhood ice cream flavors. At the end of that night, it was Fiona who asked for Elias's phone number. During subsequent dates, Fiona discovered a steadiness in Elias she'd never encountered before. He wouldn't change his opinions to please her, nor would he flaunt his achievements or wealth. He enjoyed playing chess, volunteered at community legal clinics on weekends, and sometimes spent entire afternoons sitting in the park reading an ancient philosophical treatise. Why did you choose corporate law? Fiona once asked him. I enjoy solving complex problems, Elias answered. Corporations are like organisms, and law is the framework ensuring their healthy growth. When done right, everyone benefits: investors, employees, even society. Fiona had never heard anyone talk about corporate law like that. She was used to the straightforward pursuit of money and power from those around her. Elias's idealism fascinated her, though she considered it somewhat naive. Their wedding took place a year later, small but emotional. Gareth's speech at the wedding impressed many. Elias, you are one of the most honest young men I've ever met. I trust you will be the anchor in my daughter's life. The first 3 years after the wedding, their life was like a fairy tale. Elias continued working at the law firm, while Fiona learned business management under her father's guidance. They cooked together on weekends, went hiking on holidays, and though they sometimes argued over small things, they always resolved them the same day. Elias even gave up his job at the law firm to support Fiona's career, founding his own consulting company. This way I can arrange my time more flexibly, he told Fiona, and we can spend more time together. The change began with Gareth's illness. When the cancer diagnosis came, doctors gave Gareth only 6 months to live. Fiona completely broke down. Her relationship with her father had always been both mentor and friend, and now she was about to lose the most important guide in her life. Elias fully supported his wife through this difficult period, but Gareth's illness seemed to change him too. He began spending more time at the hospital, not only accompanying Fiona, but often in long private conversations with Gareth. What do you discuss so intensely? Fiona once asked. Men's topics. Gareth smiled in response. Retirement plans, fishing techniques, things like that. Fiona didn't think much of it. All her attention was on how to prolong her father's life. The day Gareth died, the sky poured with torrential rain. After the funeral, the family lawyer Preston read the will. As expected, Fiona inherited 30% of the company's shares and a board seat, making her the largest individual shareholder. The remaining shares were distributed among other family members and several senior employees. Surprisingly, Gareth designated Elias as a special advisor, requiring him to submit an independent assessment report to the board quarterly. What does this mean? Fiona asked at the time. Preston explained that it was simply Gareth's wish for Elias to provide his legal and business perspective to help the company, especially regarding major decisions. Although Fiona found it somewhat strange, she didn't question further. The truth was far more complex. In the last weeks of Gareth's life, he privately signed a secret agreement with Elias. As a business founder, Gareth knew well how power and wealth can change a person. He loved his daughter, but also knew her weaknesses. She was intelligent but impulsive, visionary but impatient, eager to prove herself, but easily influenced. "I'm not asking you to monitor Fiona," Gareth told Elias from his hospital bed, "but to have someone protect her when necessary, even from herself. This agreement gives you certain powers, but I hope you never need to use them." The core of the agreement was a morality and loyalty clause. If Fiona's behavior seriously harmed company interests or the family reputation, Elias had the right to initiate a special procedure. This would temporarily freeze Fiona's control, transferring it to designated board members until the situation was resolved. Elias signed the document with great reluctance. "I hope this is just your excessive worry," he told Gareth. "I trust Fiona will be the leader you expect." Gareth just gave him a meaningful look. Loving someone sometimes means making difficult decisions, especially when it concerns their long-term happiness. In the first year after Gareth's death, Fiona threw herself completely into work, trying to prove she deserved her father's trust. She worked late into the night, studied market trends, and personally met with important clients. Elias supported her as much as possible, though he noticed his wife becoming increasingly distant. "Are you okay?" Elias asked Fiona one night, watching her check emails at midnight. "I'm fine, just a lot of work," Fiona answered without looking up. "We haven't had dinner together for 3 weeks." Fiona finally looked up, a flash of impatience in her eyes. "The company is at a critical point. I can't be distracted. You should understand that." Elias didn't argue, just nodded. "I understand. Just don't forget to take care of yourself." What he didn't mention was that he had already noticed some concerning signs. Fiona was making risky investment decisions, deviating from the company's traditionally conservative strategy. She began frequently changing passwords, becoming defensive even to simple inquiries. She started appearing frequently on social media, photographed with various business celebrities, clearly enjoying the spotlight. Things changed dramatically with Desmond's arrival. Desmond joined the company as an emerging expert in financial technology with an impressive resume. He had extensive connections in Silicon Valley and Wall Street and proposed a series of innovative investment strategies. Most board members were cautious, but Fiona fully supported him. "He's a genius," Fiona told the board. "Exactly the kind of forward-thinking we need." Elias first met Desmond at a company party. Desmond was elegantly dressed, spoke eloquently, and was courteous to everyone. But Elias noticed something calculating in the way he looked at Fiona. "Your wife is an extraordinary woman," Desmond told Elias. "Her vision is admirable." "Yes, she is extraordinary," Elias replied, noticing that Desmond's hand lingered on Fiona's waist a few seconds longer than courtesy required. From then on, Fiona began frequently mentioning Desmond's name. "Desmond thinks we should increase investment in the Asian market. Desmond says this emerging technology will change the entire industry. Desmond invited me to a tech summit this weekend." Elias didn't directly question, but began paying closer attention to company developments. As a special advisor, he had access to most financial reports, though he rarely exercised this power. Now, he began studying each document carefully, especially those related to projects proposed by Desmond. He discovered some unusual patterns. Several companies recommended by Desmond were recently established with vague backgrounds. Investment amounts far exceeded the norm, and financial projections in the documents were overly optimistic, lacking substantial supporting data. More worryingly, Fiona started coming home later and later. Her reasons were always work meetings or business dinners, but when Elias occasionally suggested joining her, she always had excuses to refuse. Elias hired a private investigator, legally, to track the company's money flows. Meanwhile, he also began noticing changes in Fiona's behavior. She changed her perfume, bought new lingerie, but rarely wore it around him. Her phone was always on silent and never left her side. She even changed her exercise habits, frequently visiting an exclusive club Desmond recommended. Evidence began accumulating, but Elias still hoped his suspicions were wrong. Until that Thursday night, when Fiona claimed she was traveling to Boston for business. Elias received photos from a friend who inadvertently saw Fiona and Desmond toasting in an exclusive New York restaurant, their body language clearly exceeding a colleague relationship. That night, Elias first opened the safe Gareth had left him, taking out the agreement to read carefully. The agreement terms were clear. If Fiona's behavior seriously violated family values and business ethics, including but not limited to infidelity, fraud, or actions damaging company interests, Elias had the right to activate the special clause. Elias didn't act immediately. He continued gathering evidence, both of financial irregularities within the company and Fiona's inappropriate relationship with Desmond. He recorded several meetings he attended, legal in most U.S. states as long as one participant knows, where Fiona and Desmond were clearly misleading the board about investment risks. Meanwhile, he noticed Fiona's attitude toward him changing from distance to contempt. She began belittling his career in front of friends, mocking his lack of ambition and contentment with the status quo. This contrasted sharply with her previous appreciation for his stability and principles. Elias felt a deep sense of betrayal, not only due to Fiona's infidelity, but her betrayal of promises to her father and responsibility to the family business. He began considering using the agreement, though he knew this would forever change their relationship. He organized all the evidence collected, saved it encrypted on a secure server, and sent an encrypted email to lawyer Preston, outlining the situation but not proposing specific actions. Preston's response was brief and clear. Once you decide to initiate the procedure, the process will be irreversible. Make sure you're prepared to face all consequences. Elias knew what those consequences meant. His marriage would end completely. Fiona would lose her position in the company, and family relationships would face severe tests. But he equally understood that continuing to remain silent meant becoming complicit, watching as Fiona and Desmond emptied the company, betraying Gareth's trust and wishes. He made his decision, but needed the right moment. The dinner after the quarterly board meeting provided that opportunity. When Fiona publicly humiliated him and slapped him in front of everyone, Elias knew the time had come. He took out his phone and sent a brief message to Preston, Nathaniel, and Harrison. According to the supervision agreement signed with Gareth, Appendix B, Fiona's behavior today has seriously violated the agreement's provisions regarding maintenance of family reputation and loyalty. I hereby formally request activation of the power transfer procedure stipulated in the agreement. The attachment contains the link to all evidence supporting this request and the access password. After sending it, Elias knew there was no turning back. 10 minutes later, when Fiona's phone received the confirmation message forwarded by Preston, everything would be revealed. The air in the restaurant solidified into a block of silence. Fiona's slap still burned on Elias's cheek, but his expression had already returned to calm. Others nervously looked at each other, uncertain how to react. "We should go." Fiona tried to regain control of the situation, her voice a mixture of anger and embarrassment. At that moment, almost everyone's phones in the restaurant chimed simultaneously. Nathaniel, Harrison, and Preston all looked at their phones, their expressions quickly changing from confusion to shock. "What's going on?" Fiona asked uneasily, seeing everyone's reaction. No one answered. Nathaniel slowly raised his head, his gaze falling first on Elias, then turning to Fiona. "Do you know what your husband just sent?" "What? Is it so important?" Fiona responded sarcastically, but her voice already carried a hint of uncertainty. Preston cleared his throat, his professionalism momentarily overcoming his shock. "Fiona, I just received a formal notification from Elias to activate the special clause in your father's will." "What special clause?" Fiona looked confused at Elias, then at Preston. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Preston took a deep breath. "Your father established a safeguard measure in his will. If your behavior seriously violated family values and company interests, Elias had the right to notify the board to initiate a power transfer procedure." Fiona's face instantly turned pale. "That's impossible. My father would never do that." "He did," Preston said calmly, "and it's completely legal. All documents are notarized and stored in my safe." Fiona turned to Elias, her eyes filled with disbelief. You've been monitoring me? Is that why my father made you a special advisor?" Elias didn't immediately answer, his expression complex and pained. "Answer me." Fiona almost screamed. "Not monitoring," Elias finally spoke, "but protecting. Protecting the company, your father's legacy, and including you." "Protecting me?" Fiona laughed sarcastically. By taking away my power? Is this what you call love? I never thought about using this agreement, Elias said softly, until I discovered that you and Desmond were not only betraying me, but the entire company. Desmond shifted uncomfortably beside them. That's a ridiculous accusation. We're just driving innovation. Shut up, Desmond. Elias's voice suddenly turned sharp. Unless you want to explain who the real investors behind the quantum project are and how much kickback you've received. Desmond's face paled, his eyes quickly scanning the exits, calculating escape possibilities. What? Fiona looked at Desmond in shock. That's not true, is it? We discussed every detail. You told me the risks were calculated. Desmond didn't answer directly, maintaining a cautious silence while discreetly sliding his phone into his pocket, seemingly preparing some contingency plan. Just then, Fiona's phone rang. She mechanically took out her phone and saw a message from Preston. As per Garrett's arrangement, the special procedure is now initiated. Please immediately cease all company-related activities and await the emergency board resolution. Attached are the relevant legal documents and evidence summary. Fiona's fingers trembled as she opened the attachment. The first document she saw was photos of her and Desmond in New York, followed by hotel records. Then the real financial analysis of the quantum project, showing expected losses rather than profits. And finally, records of Desmond's similar past business frauds. Each page was like a sharp knife, cutting into her pride and arrogance. She looked up and saw the complex expressions of everyone at the table. Disappointment, anger, compassion, but not a hint of surprise. They had suspected for a long time, she realized. They just lacked evidence. And now Elias had provided that evidence. This isn't fair. Fiona's voice trembled, her eyes flashing with a mixture of anger and fear. You can't just take away what belongs to me. I am Garrett's daughter. The company should be under my leadership. It was your father's company, Nathaniel said severely. He entrusted it to you because he trusted you would cherish and protect it, not use it to satisfy personal desires or be manipulated. Fiona suddenly realized the severity of the situation. She might not only lose control of the company, but also her social status, financial freedom, and even family support. This fear of falling from the heights momentarily made her feel suffocated. Elias, please, she staggered toward her husband, her voice almost pleading. We can talk, resolve this. Don't do this. Elias's eyes showed a flash of pain, quickly replaced by determination. It's too late, Fiona. You're not a CEO who made wrong decisions at the board. You're someone who betrayed everyone who trusted you. Your father, the company, and me. Fiona's face contorted for an instant. Then she quickly changed tactics, her voice cooling. You'll never forgive me, will you? For a little affair? Don't pretend you're so hurt, Elias. We both know you've been cold to me for a long time. This isn't about our marriage. Elias's voice was calm but firm. It's about your betrayal of the company, of your father's wishes. Don't bring my father into this. Fiona suddenly screamed. You don't understand what he expected of me. I understand more than you imagine, Elias replied. He wanted you to be a responsible and ethical leader, not someone who sacrificed company interests for personal weaknesses and vanity. Fiona's tears finally spilled over, but these weren't tears of remorse, rather a mixture of anger and humiliation. She knelt on the floor, not for admitting her mistake, but because she suddenly understood the desperation of her situation. Please forgive me. I didn't know Desmond was like that. I just felt lonely and lost. Desmond, seeing the situation was clear, moved silently toward the door. I think I should leave. Any issues can be discussed tomorrow. Sit down, Harrison ordered coldly. If you want to leave, you'll have to get past the lawyers first. He gestured toward the door, where two security guards were already standing. Desmond froze, a flash of panic in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. What does this mean? You can't restrict my personal freedom. I have the right to leave. Of course you can, Preston said, before the police arrive. We've already reported suspected business fraud to the authorities. Desmond's gaze turned icy. You have no evidence. Elias spoke calmly. I have 6 months of recordings, email correspondence records, and photos of your private meetings with the Meridian Group. Enough to keep you in prison for quite a long time. Desmond's composure finally cracked as he attempted a last struggle. Fiona knew everything. She's an accomplice. If I fall, She won't escape either. I didn't know. Fiona shouted hoarsely. I didn't know what you were doing. You told me it was innovation, a business opportunity. Come on, Desmond smiled coldly. Don't pretend to be innocent. You knew perfectly well what we were doing. You just chose to ignore it. You enjoyed those luxury hotels and private yachts without asking where the money came from. Fiona looked at him stunned, as if truly seeing him for the first time. You bastard. You used me. Mutual use, dear, Desmond said sarcastically. I needed your position and reputation. You needed me to make you feel like a genius entrepreneur. Fair deal. The following hours were like a nightmare. An emergency board meeting was convened in a private room of the restaurant, where Elias submitted all the evidence he had collected. The evidence showed that Fiona and Desmond not only had an inappropriate relationship, but had conspired to invest company funds in high-risk and dubious projects, many of which had direct or indirect interest connections to Desmond. Worse, further investigation revealed that Desmond had similar histories before joining the company. He had established intimate relationships with executives at other companies, influenced investment decisions, and then escaped before projects failed. This is textbook business fraud, Preston told the board. If made public, not only will the company's reputation be damaged, but it could face regulatory investigations. The board unanimously agreed to activate the special clause. According to the agreement, Fiona's voting rights and management decision-making power were temporarily frozen, with control assumed by an interim committee formed by Nathaniel, Harrison, and 2 other senior directors. Simultaneously, the company would launch a comprehensive investigation to assess losses and take remedial measures. Desmond was detained on the spot, awaiting police arrival. His expression changed from panic to anger, and finally settled on a cold calculation, as if already planning how to escape and counterattack. Fiona completely collapsed. She was no longer that confident, strong woman, but an empty shell who had lost everything. She couldn't even look into Elias's eyes, because there she would only see her own failure and betrayal. That night, Fiona returned alone to the mansion she shared with Elias, discovering he had already packed some basic belongings and left. He didn't leave any note or message, as if he had completely severed ties with this home. Fiona sat in the empty living room, truly facing her choices and actions for the first time. Without Desmond's flowery words, without the company's aura, without the applause of her social circle, she finally saw herself, a woman blinded by power and vanity, who betrayed everyone who loved her. The next day, more blows came in succession. The company's internal investigation deepened, discovering that Quantum was just the tip of the iceberg. Desmond had actually planned a series of suspicious transactions, totaling nearly 15% of the company's value. If Elias hadn't intervened in time, the company might have faced catastrophic losses. Fiona tried to contact Elias, but his phone had turned into voicemail. She tried to contact Desmond, hoping to at least get an explanation, but his phone was disconnected and his social media accounts deleted. 3 days later, news broke that Desmond had fled the United States after being released on bail, heading to a country without an extradition treaty. Before escaping, he managed to transfer most of his funds, leaving chaos and numerous claimants. Fiona tried to contact Elias again, this time through Preston. She begged for a chance to meet, a chance to explain. But Elias's response was cold and clear. We have nothing more to talk about. Lawyers will handle the divorce details. At least let me explain. Fiona almost pleaded. Let me tell you why all this happened. I don't need explanations, Elias replied. Your actions have already said everything. Our marriage is over. I fulfilled my promise to Gareth. Now I need to continue my own life. Just like that? 5 years of marriage ends just like that. Fiona's voice was filled with disbelief. No, Fiona. Elias's voice came through the phone, calm but full of certainty. Our marriage ended the moment you decided to betray me, betray your father. Now it's just legal confirmation. The silence on the other end of the phone lasted for several seconds. Then Elias added, I hope you find the life you want, but it will no longer involve me. Goodbye, Fiona. With the call ended, Fiona felt an unprecedented loneliness and emptiness. She once had everything: wealth, status, love. Now she had lost it all. And the most painful part was knowing that it was all her own doing. In the weeks that followed, Fiona's life was like a roller coaster. The company investigation continued to deepen, with her excluded from all decisions. Family members and former friends distanced themselves, and those who once flattered her in her social circle now avoided her. She began to understand the consequences of her actions, but this understanding came with deep resentment toward Elias, toward her father, even toward herself. Meanwhile, Elias's life was also changing dramatically. He moved out of their shared residence into a simple apartment. Divorce proceedings began, and considering Fiona's infidelity and business misconduct, the terms were extremely unfavorable to her. But Elias didn't use this opportunity to retaliate or punish Fiona. He only asked for a fair division of property that was truly shared, leaving the rest to her. "Why not ask for more?" his lawyer once asked. "You're entitled to more." "I don't need more," Elias replied. "I just need to end all of this and move forward." The divorce was finally settled 6 months later. At the last hearing, Fiona and Elias unexpectedly met outside the courtroom. "Why?" Fiona asked, her voice low and painful. "Why would you rather destroy everything than give us a chance?" Elias looked at her, no anger in his eyes, only a calm determination. "Because some things, once broken, can never be repaired. Trust is like that. People make mistakes, Elias," Fiona said. "I made a mistake, I admit. But isn't love about forgiveness?" "Love is about respect and honesty," Elias replied. "When these foundations disappear, love also ceases to exist. We're over, Fiona. Accept this fact and continue your life." He gently walked around her and entered the courtroom, ending their marriage. Fiona stood there, feeling a wave of cold reality wash over her. She had completely lost Elias and would never get him back. A year later, Elias completed his final obligation to Gareth's agreement, submitting a detailed company restructuring proposal. The board accepted most of his suggestions, and the company began to gradually recover. Elias declined the invitation to remain as a company advisor, choosing to focus on his own consulting business. His professional reputation, far from being damaged by this storm, was enhanced by his integrity and principles. Clients came to him in droves, and his company expanded threefold. Desmond's fate was vastly different. After a year on the run, he was arrested in Spain by Interpol and extradited to the United States to face multiple charges. Investigations revealed that over the past 10 years, he had defrauded at least 5 companies using similar methods, causing hundreds of millions of dollars in losses. In court, Desmond maintained an arrogant attitude, refusing to plead guilty or apologize. "This is just a business game," he told the judge. "Everyone plays it. I'm just technically better." These words earned him the harshest sentence: 15 years in prison without possibility of parole, plus an order to compensate all the companies he had defrauded. When asked if he had any regrets, he only responded with a sardonic smile. "The only thing I regret is not leaving this country earlier." Fiona, for her part, experienced a profound identity crisis. After losing effective control of the company, her husband, and her social status, she had to re-examine her life. Initially, she was full of resentment, considering herself a victim of Elias and her family. But as time passed, she began to face her own responsibility. "I ruined everything," she admitted in a rare public interview. "Not because I fell in love with someone else, but because I betrayed everyone who trusted me. I let power and vanity blind me, and I paid the price for it." But this recognition didn't win back Elias's heart or her family's trust. The company eventually decided to permanently limit her management rights, allowing her to retain some shares, but never again participate in any decisions. 3 years later, Elias had completely rebuilt his life. His consulting firm grew rapidly, focusing on helping businesses establish more transparent and ethical management structures. Occasionally, he received messages from Fiona, birthday wishes or simple greetings, but he never replied. For him, that relationship was now part of the past, a painful but valuable lesson. When a reporter asked if he regretted his decision, Elias only briefly responded, "Some lessons come at a high price, but they are the most profound." When trust is betrayed, the damage isn't just emotional, but also an offense to a person's core values. In such situations, separation is often the only healthy choice. Fiona opened a small cafe in a remote coastal town, living a simple and peaceful life. She no longer pursued power and fame, but learned to appreciate the simple joys of life. On her wall hung a photo of her father, reminding her of everything she once had and lost. Sometimes she thought about the night that changed her life, about that angry slap and Elias's calm reaction. She finally understood that it wasn't just an impulsive act, but the culmination of years of contempt and disrespect for her husband. When she most needed to see herself clearly, she chose blind arrogance. When she most needed her husband's wisdom and honesty, she chose a con man's sweet talk. The most ironic thing was that her father had foreseen all of this. In Gareth's private journal, there were several mentions of his concerns about certain traits in Fiona's character: her impulsiveness, her desire for recognition, her occasional self-centeredness. That's why he had carefully designed that special agreement and chosen Elias as the executor, someone who loved her enough but was also sufficiently principled. Desmond obtained parole after 5 years for good behavior, but discovered he had been completely blacklisted in the financial world. No company would hire him, and his former contacts all avoided him. He eventually found work at a small casino in Las Vegas, watching others win and lose daily, just like the game he used to manipulate in the business world. He never expressed any remorse, still insisting he had just played the game. Elias, despite his professional success, remained cautious about new romantic relationships for a long time. The pain of betrayal is not easily healed, and trust, once lost, is difficult to rebuild. He devoted more energy to work and community service, seeking new value and meaning. Occasionally, in lonely nights, he remembered the evening he met Fiona, the days when they loved each other. These memories no longer brought pain, just a slight regret for possibilities that might have existed but forever vanished. But he never regretted his decision. On that fateful night, when Fiona's palm struck his face, he knew some boundaries, once crossed, allow no return. Sending that message not only fulfilled his promise to Gareth, but was also loyalty to himself. At that seemingly ordinary dinner table, when Fiona slapped her husband, she couldn't imagine she was triggering a series of irreversible events. Elias's brief message revealed all hidden truths, changing the course of life for everyone involved. The reality that traitors must face is cruel and simple. When you choose to betray others, you also betray yourself, and the price of this betrayal often exceeds what is imaginable. If this story resonated with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content. We look forward to meeting you in another story.